Okay, so you may have clicked on this video thinking, okay, cool, she's gonna give specific tips for all of these things. Some reading tips for ADHD, some for autism, some for anxiety, but actually all of these tips apply to all of those things. All of these things fall under an umbrella called neurodiversity. This term was coined in 1988 by sociologist Judy Singer. Contrary to some arguments within the communities, it does apply to mental illness. If anxiety and depression is a big part of your life, then you are neurodivergent. In a nutshell, neurodiversity is all about the natural diversity of human minds. So I'm going to break these reading tips up into 3 categories. The first being how to choose what to read. The second being the reading process itself. And the third being how to keep it up. When you are deciding what to read, I would highly suggest mostly reading within your special interest or your hyperfixation, something that you are so interested in, you just know that it'll be so easy to devour that material. So for me, I read at least a third of horror books because I'm super interested in horror movies, and I have been since I was 11, and it's my longest standing special interest other than writing and reading in general. I make sure that I am always approaching reading with just an excited attitude because I'm reading something that I really care about. And a bonus tip would be mix in comfort reads. I think it's really beneficial to anybody who struggles with more difficult days to mix in something either from your childhood that gave you great comfort or just something now that makes you feel more cozy and relaxed. Reading doesn't always have to be like thrilling, high stakes, or hard-hitting stuff. It can also be a relaxing activity. Another thing that I highly suggest is ignoring FOMO. Even if a book is getting super hyped up and you feel like I'm going to be missing out so much if I don't read that, if you're not genuinely interested in the premise, just skip it. It's not really worth you falling into a reading slump or getting frustrated or not liking the book as much as like the majority of people. Neurodivergent people have always had to deal with feeling like they don't quite fit in. So FOMO has a much deeper meaning to ND folks. That's going to be something you encounter, but I think it's best to move on from that because it's not going to be a fun time if you don't enjoy the book, genuinely. Okay, so when you are actually sitting down with a book, I have a few suggestions. One is to pay really close attention to whether you are under or overstimulated. Being understimulated while reading is going to feel something like agitation, restlessness, boredom. You can fix being understimulated by putting on some background music, setting up your area really nice with like lots of blankets and pillows and string lights and just really feeling like you're in a curated environment for your reading. This can also be stimming while reading. So I will insert a clip of my stim toys and a clip of how I stim with one hand while reading with the other. And this can also go for reading an audiobook and stimming with both hands. And it doesn't just have to be with a stim toy, it can also be knitting, doing a puzzle. Also, it's a really good idea to work in some of your more boring self-care stuff that you need to do. I will play an audiobook while I'm cleaning the dishes or going through some paperwork that I need to organize. And if you are overstimulated while reading, it's also gonna feel kind of similar to being understimulated where you are feeling agitated, but it's going to feel a little bit more vulnerable and a little bit more like something's wrong. I don't feel good, and I feel more like a tense feeling. So if you are overstimulated while reading, you could have a really icky fluorescent light above you. There could be construction noises outside. If you're feeling anxious, there could be maybe a phone call that you need to get out of the way before you can enjoy reading, or a list that you need to make, or a diary entry you need to just get out before you can enjoy reading. Also, when you get hyper-focused or hyper-fixated or lost in escapism when you're reading, you might forget to eat a decent meal, get hydrated, take your meds. So just make sure that those things are out of the way before you really dive into that book. And the last category is how to keep up your reading. First of all, your reading progress does not need to be a perfect line, climbing and climbing more and more books you're reading. It can be all over the place, and that is okay. Don't compare your reading progress to neurotypical standards, and always put your mental health and your physical health first. And you're going to have worse reading months, better reading months, but as long as you're getting something fulfilling out of it, then that's really all that matters. And as long as you're sparking a conversation, even with yourself or bookish friends that you make, or friends in real life, friends online, that is really what matters most. So I plan to make this a series and also include how my reading may differ from neurotypical people's readings, and I will be including that in reading vlogs. Thanks for watching. It's really ironic that I'm talking about ADHD and there's a squirrel distracting me in a tree, literally right now, which is like the most cliche ADHD thing ever.